fast. So after we talked about Luxo and Gnosis, let's get back to Ethereum. No pun intended. I love Gnosis and lots of cool stuff you have built and we are using as well. So there's a lot to be said. I think, Florian Klatz is speaking after me. He's just getting fired up and I'm just his foreband basically, preparing for what is to come. But I will not get too spicy. I just want to get a bit of, at the beginning, what actually happened and what was the spirit and mindset back at the time. Maybe I've lost some of it, so I just want to try to bring it back. So I started at Ethereum actually 10 years ago. So this was this month when I wrote Gavin, I would like to join the Ethereum Foundation, so he hired me and I started to work as a tester. So I have seen a lot during those years, and you can ask me any questions if you want. And it really started, first of all, we were all Bitcoiners. Let's start where it really was. So Vitalik, Gavin, Jeffrey, me, I got into Bitcoin in 2013, we loved it, and it was just that you know the story, that he could not build Ethereum on Bitcoin, he looked to Mastercoin, he went to all those people, and then he decided to do it on his own. He wrote the Ethereum white paper, which I highly recommend for everyone to read. It's still like a prophetic message from the past because almost everything in there got fulfilled. He predicted, I think, everything except of NFTs, but he got NFT, he got like the DAOs, the ENS, the Uniswap kind of stuff, all those things you can already read in this white paper. But let's start with the technical part and people we should appreciate also from the past. Some people which you maybe not remember anymore or have a bad, maybe even a bad naming. One of the guys is Stefan Tual. He was he was the chief communication officer of Ethereum. People hated him after the DAO. Now we'll get to that. But he was actually a guy who started all those meetups. So you could say his legacy is also this and many, many other meetups around the world because he said, he traveled around the world, started those meetups, found someone and paid them to get it going. And so a lot of those Ethereum meetups came because of Stefan Tual, and he created a lot of the community. Then let's get to Gavin Wood. Gavin Wood wrote this masterpiece, and this is just a very short snippet of it, called the Yellow Paper. And Vitalik, I would dare to say, he's not in the room, was not capable of building Ethereum. And I'm meaning this not in a negative way. I highly respect him. He was a coder. He was very young, I think 18 or 19 or so. He was totally brilliant in understanding cryptography, the whole concept. He did build a Bitcoin client. So yes, he could have built a Python Ethereum implementation, which is more of like a research implementation, which could not run at scale. But Gavin was really capable of taking this white paper and writing an actual specification. And this was total new in the blockchain space. Bitcoin didn't have a specification. But now Ethereum got a specification which really nailed it. Every detail was written in there, how the Ethereum virtual machine works, the opcodes. This is just a little piece how those different opcodes work. And so when I joined Ethereum, so my background was, I was a theoretical physicist at the time, working at my PhD. I was pretty decent at coding in C++. And so when I talked to him, he gave me all the tasks which needs to be done. I just tried to grab the most difficult one, which was testing the Ethereum virtual machine across different clients or implementations. So my task there is still existing. I don't know if they still use those tests. I guess not because they're too old. But I wrote thousands and thousands and thousands of tests, testing all of those EVM opcodes and state changes and block changes and so on. It was really fun because I was fairly independent and could just pick go to Gavin or Jeffrey or Vitalik and say what they did wrong. This doesn't work, specification doesn't work, you implemented it differently. So this is mostly what I did. But the Ethereum Yellow Paper was brilliant. This is still has to stand out. So based on this, Jeffrey Wilke developed the Go Ethereum client, Vitalik the Python client, Gavin the C++ client. You know the story why we use the Go client, not the C++ client? Maybe a little side story. That's maybe the actual reason why we have Polkadot today. So what happened? Go Ethereum was built by Jeffrey, and we wanted to launch. And we have planned a security audit. We did it by a company called Deja Vu in Seattle. I was there. And since Gavin wanted to build in some more features, he said, let's first audit the Go client, and then let's audit the C++ client. And Python, we don't need to audit because it's crap and doesn't really work anyway. So let's just go with those two clients. And then we can launch. But the community really want to launch. They needed also some some like money actually. The foundation was running out of money. So they decided, let's go with Go Ethereum because this is audited already. And then we can audit C++ and just release it a couple of months later. Even though it was totally fine and did work, but Ethereum started, the foundation said, this is the tested client, use it, everybody used it and didn't change. So that's why everybody used Go Ethereum. Gavin was pretty pissed about it, and in the end, actually when the foundation did try to reduce costs, they decided to kill the C++ team, and this was basically the start of EastCore, which later on became Parity, which is today Polkadot. And I think this really did hurt Ethereum a lot, because I really think Gavin was a brilliant coder and cryptographer, and he basically set the tone in terms of after him and many other layer ones started. Because he was the first of us who really left and started their own L1 if you want, and so many others came later. And there are good sides about having different layer ones and there are bad sides about it. I sometimes compare it maybe to the Linux distribution. Like, yes, Apple did win the desktop war, Linux didn't win. Linux has tons of different distributions which are all fun. I like Linux, but it's not mainstream. So this was a problem which happened at that time. But let's get back one step. I got too much into the history. So when Ethereum started, we did not just want to create another blockchain. The idea was a platform for decentralized applications. Have any of you saw this before? This was kind of the tech roadmap. Yeah. So the idea was just to, this has a lot in it actually. Each circle is a user. Each user has a browser. In his browser, there should be 3 protocols: Swarm for file storage, Whisper for messaging, and the EVM, or based on the blockchain, for smart contract execution. And all the code of the app would be in the local storage, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So the idea was to have a true peer-to-peer network, that apps are truly decentralized without any server infrastructure. So let's give you an example how this would work for a simple, let's say, chess application. You want to play a game of chess. So you would say, the smart contract would have the logic of the chess game, who did win the game. So, and they could say, whoever wins the game gets, 10 Ether. So Swarm would store, for example, the nice web app interface, HTML code, CSS and JavaScript and so on, would be stored on Swarm. When they make some moves in the chess game, they would just give signed messages to each other, which would then be used in the end to prove who did win the game. So this would mean you would have a fully decentralized chess game. Nobody controls, it runs forever. Maybe from the guy who did win the game, 5% goes to gas costs and running some stuff, and you would have an actual decentralized application. And everything was done in that mind. So that's why running a server was kind of forbidden. Like building an application which had server backend, you don't do this. So running an application without the end user running a full node, big no-go. So this was not how it was designed. So this is how we thought about it all the time, and the EVM part, or the Ethereum chain, was just one part of it. So unfortunately, Whisper was too hardcore. It was super, super dark, but not performant. So it didn't really work as we'd wished for. Swarm is still existing, but I think IPFS became big at the time, so people thought, let's just use IPFS and Filecoin. Yuan Bennett did a great job at that. So, but this was the vision. And so the idea was then to have different user interfaces for the same app. Because now if the data is on Swarm, or let's say IPFS, you can message each other. Everybody has access to the blockchain. You can have different interfaces. And so we started, and this is Fabian's work, together with his team, the Mist browser. And the Mist browser was a generic interface for all smart contracts. So if you have a DAO-like contract, you would have some read data, some write to contract, and you would have your wallet in there, and you could just execute transactions and interact directly with the chain. And I still miss that Mist browser. I really hope someone is funding it and get rebuilt, because this would give you an access, having your own browser, just using Web3 technologies without any server infrastructure in between. So this was Mist browser. And this was how we thought about it, creating a new internet. So then my part, there's one more slide from this tech roadmap, how we saw it, like internet, hardware clients, Swarm, Whisper EVM, decentralized applications, Mist browser sitting on top of it. So this was the tech stack we envisioned back then. And then many different people could build different interfaces for the same applications. So then there was a project, before I get to this project, so what would be the requirements for being called, let's say, a dApp? So the app would run totally client-side. We focused a lot on peer-to-peer networks because Whisper Swarm and of course the blockchain would be a peer-to-peer network. How many of those app users out there are running a pure peer-to-peer network to run their application? Maybe some using the Gnosis validator, which is great, and then you can do something like that, but really not many. So then we thought, let's at least run a light client. Those of you who know my past, I worked at Slockit, and we had developed we called it Incubed, an ultra-light client, where at least you can verify all the transaction messages in the state. So there is like full node, there are light clients, and Ethereum was built to be light client friendly, meaning you could have the block header, you would have the like Merkle roots in there, you would have all the things you need, plus some filters and others, so you could actually build light clients. I really do not know why light clients did not take off. So I'm really missing them, because if you would have light clients, then such things as like, you cannot imagine, but when MetaMask was first presented at DEF CON 1, I really thought this is a scam. Like they would not just run a node, how did you do this? They would just tell people how much money they have on their account. It's like 100% reliance on their RPC provider. It's just totally not what we have built here. So there was total opposition at DEF CON 1 at such a centralized piece of like MetaMask. And this was, today we speak about our full non-custodial MetaMask are the good guys. They are like, they are actually using it. This is the total opposite of how we thought about it. And this shirt was DEF CON 0 in 2015. So 2016 was presented MetaMask. This was absolutely not what we thought. We thought they at least have a light client built in. I talked with the MetaMask team. Why don't you have a light client in it? I still don't get it, why they don't do it. But well, no light client. So MetaMask was a big no-go at the beginning. So then it needs to continue to operate when creators are gone. We were deeply fascinated by Satoshi Nakamoto. And the idea was, at some point, Ethereum Foundation would just dissolve and Ethereum would continue. I think it will still happen maybe in 20 or 30 years, depending on spending, that Ethereum Foundation someday will go away and Ethereum will just run without it. But the same would be true, that's what we always promised, you can now build applications which inherit the same characteristics as Bitcoin. Meaning you can just launch it and go away. This was the idea. How many apps are out there where the creators are still around and just or have not gone into anonymity and just go away? Not too many. But this was the idea. You can just go away. Of course, full self-custody, stable incentives built into smart contracts of long-term operations incentives like paying for swarm fees and other stuff. So the consequences would be you could have several user interfaces for the same application, something we always dreamed of. We kind of have this today. You can use Uniswap, for example, through the Uniswap UI or through other UIs. Censorship resistant, independent of leadership, no single point of failure. So this was the idea how it should work and running forever. In this mindset, I was part of the project, which you, I think, maybe know, comes later, the DAO. But this basically was the team. I found this old picture. This was DEF CON 0 2014. Yes, 2014 in Berlin. Yeah. So great time. If you want to have any question who this is, you can ask me. So this was basically the team who built Ethereum in the beginning. So then the DAO. Of course, I have to speak a little bit about it. But first the good thing, then the bad thing. So the good thing is we really tried to follow the stuff I just talked to you. The DAO was a smart contract which was not updatable. Nobody did govern it, not even us. We just wrote the code. The DAO did not even have a user interface. We thought, why should we build one that was missed? So people, as you know, invested something like $150 million from about 20,000 wallets. Really nice distribution, almost no big whales in there, using the Mist browser, because this was the only thing available. And some people still used exchanges, so they could also put their money in. So there are lots of people, and I still had to help some. They used actually a Gnosis. Actually, that was not back then. You didn't have Gnosis wallet. I think was already there. So the Mist browser, as a default, had a 1 out of 1 Gnosis safe. So they didn't see even their coins in their actually externally owned account because it's hidden in some 1 out of 1 Gnosis safe that there was no interface for this left. So it was really messy. But a lot of people did this. And some people even asked for why the name the DAO? Because we did not give it a name. We said we are not allowed to. We have no authority to do so. So there needs to be a proposal by the DAO and they need to decide on their name. And so until this was just a working title. Why was there no cap on the DAO? Because someone feared a whale could come in and buy a large percentage of it and would not be decentralized anymore. So the cap was decided against because of decentralization. So Slockit, how much money did we make with the DAO? Anybody knows? 0% of tokens go to Slockit. Nothing. This was because it would be totally like a scam. Yeah. Thank you, Florian. So this was how we thought about this. And then there was even a sticker back at the time. It's called AppCoin free. So if you build a real application, it needs to be AppCoin free. So the sticker was only given to some. So this was the mindset we built. I know there was a bug in the contract, and because of all the things I just explained, we couldn't do anything except of the hard fork. And of course, this is now a long story. If anybody has any question, I'm very happy to answer them. I answered them many times for many books and authors, and there are 3 books written about it, some movies made about it. So if you have any questions, sure, I can answer them, but it's not a topic of today. I really first wanted to focus on the mindset we had back then. And some people still have it, but many people really have just lost it. And you have applications which just don't follow those principles anymore. Even though we have now the power to create applications with the same nice, good characteristics as Bitcoin, being censorship resistant, running forever, creator can leave, you don't need any server on the back end, no single point of failure, pure peer-to-peer network. There's a lot of stuff out there, but not all of them are using it. So, some success? Yes. The market cap is nice, maybe. I really like ENS, I really like Uniswap, I really like the DeFi stuff which has come out of it. There are really some cool stuff out there. There are some users. I didn't really get all this NFT stuff, fun game. I was not really much into it. But then what did I do afterwards? So I did build a venture studio. We have about 5 companies we created, all building on top of Ethereum. So I'm still very much active, at least in this Ethereum ecosystem. One of them, because we said there are no users, that's not fully true. So we have built a company called Tokenized, where we tokenize German GmbH shares. So this leaves us with nice things like this. I just opened this browser. So this is, for example, the cap table of our GmbH, fully tokenized on-chain, on Etherscan. You can interact with it, for example, using, I would say the Etherscan UI is kind of a little bit what the Mist browser was, so you kind of can interact with smart contracts. So there are users. We have almost, I think, 85 companies signed up now, GmbHs, which are distributing their shares via tokens. And our platform is completely non-custodial. We don't touch the money, we don't touch the tokens. So they all have non-custodial wallets. So this is an example, and what I'm most proud of, most of our customers are not coming from the crypto Web3 space. They're doing dog food, they're doing building cars, like e-cars and stuff like this. And they are using on-chain stuff almost without noticing, using the nice tooling which does exist. So we're using Gnosis Safe for them. We're using Privy as an embedded wallet to get into this for those people who don't know yet how to create their wallet. So I think infrastructure-wise, it's actually everything is there. Gas prices are super low as well, so that's good for us because we have built on Ethereum, but we're also using Gnosis for the crowd investing feature, mainly also for gas prices. We've got the nice Monerium integration and other things, so it is important that we have all this stuff. So now I talk a lot about, I think there is a lot of good stuff. So Ethereum has been great, and I'm just a warm-up for Florian. He will tell you what is not so great. I'm really looking forward to it. Florian is a good friend, and he has a good ethos. I'm looking forward to what he will speak about, but if you have any questions to me, let me know.
Thanks so much for this little walk down memory lane. Questions? Yes.
Yeah, thanks for the talk. It was like a fresh wind like coming into the room. I think when you are on Twitter these days, I think you get the impression that everything that you just told us is like the wrong way of doing things, and that like we just need to build for, I don't know, the mass consumer, and like it was mentioned several times, like nobody cares about decentralization and so on and so forth. So I wonder how you feel about that.
It depends. For example, if you build core infrastructure, this is a protocol. This should be fully decentralized as described. For example, the Tokenized app is still a web app hosted on a server, so we have not reached this level of decentralization, but we have at least full non-custodial platform that they can technically use their tokens. They can use Etherscan, maybe in a future Mist version or whatever, to use this. So it always should be possible that without the web app, things can continue. And there are many who are actually following this. The problem is there's so much distraction and there's so much stuff. I mean, I'm not following all of this anymore. So it depends on who you follow on Twitter, of course, and on social media. There is some good stuff, but it's, I mean, I let this part to Florian. There just has been a massive, extreme disallocation of funds in the last 10 years. In terms of, like, Ethereum is worth billions, but this money has been used to fund a lot of bad stuff, also good stuff. Like the Ethereum Foundation is still doing good stuff. And I'm not speaking at the Ethereum Foundation in particular. I'm speaking more of like how much billions, like 4 billion to EOS. What did we get from that? Like what is left? $4 billion. The Ethereum Foundation had about 18 billion. So what is left? Pretty decent stuff. So and if you have more good teams having better funding, they could build really nice stuff. Of course, you need sometimes token economics to fund yourself. And token economics or launching a token is not always a bad idea. There are some good reasons for doing so. I actually think the SEC and all the stuff which happened after the DAO had, even though many ICOs are really bad, we stopped doing ICOs and just going the VC route has not really helped at all. So I still think we need this ICO-style funding mechanism to have those actual decentralized protocols. Just founders are very afraid of regulatory issues and stuff like this. That's just how it is. So I'm still optimistic. I'm always optimistic. But there's lots of work to do. And we need to remind ourselves what we actually built in the first place. And I still think we need it a lot in the next decades to come to see which state the world is. And if we lose privacy, if we lose our access to funds, we are basically building plan B. That's kind of how I feel. Like if the system starts to fall apart, and I sometimes feel like this, we have a plan B. But we should be a bit better at building it out. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, Flo. Thank you.
I just want to add to this that, I mean, exactly what you're saying and what you're showing. This was our vision, right? We were there building out the idea of doing everything perfect. And the Mist browser was exactly started on this idea. Let's do everything decentralized. The idea was that we will host the apps on Swarm. There was only the Ethereum wallet as a DApp and maybe one other or two others. So they were all then server hosted or shipped with the whole thing. But the idea is really like, so this is my kind of experience with the whole process. We tried it the full way. It kind of failed.
Too early.
Too early. Also, yeah, lots of things were not there yet in place. And what I believe now is we have to see that decentralization as a goal, but build like basically being able to compromise on a more soft version to that, you know, just like you have a website. Just have a website first, let them access it, and then over time it needs to be set up in such a way that it can decentralize.
But the problem is there an incentive to do so?
I do believe it is when people start to discover the benefits of decentralization without coming for it in the first place. And I mean, this is what I'm working on right now. I mean, like, why do
but the benefit, like,
profiles, right? Because what people care is profile.
Right. The people don't care about decentralization until you need them. You need it.
Yeah.
So meaning in the case of tokenized, so sometimes people ask us, why do you need a blockchain for this, use a database and so on. The reason is, if we are gone, your cap table is still functional. So, and you can still operate it. So that's the super important part. Otherwise, I would not trust the startup with my cap table. So this is a real strong reason. But of course, you only need it once we are gone. As long as we are there, you can use this nice web app. But if you're not there anymore, just use Etherscan. It's good enough, maybe. So yeah, I still think we have a long way to go. I'm optimistic, but I see there's no big incentive for some people to move into this direction. So let's see if we can still get there.
I believe we do, and I think it's about like getting them in, letting them use Web3 without knowing they're using Web3, and then over time discover why is that actually useful. Or you can now receive things, you can now send things, you can actually monetize better maybe than what you could monetize before. I mean, I have a plan. I'm working on that.
Let's see. But the real plan would be to get united again, and this defragmentation in the space has also hurt a lot, I think. So that's just the problem we have.
Hello. I was thinking that what you described at the beginning is basically a political act. And now you go to many Ethereum hackathons and you see that people are doing it for fun. So sort of they play around, they have
It is fun as well.
bounties, it's fun, yeah, but they're highly apolitical, you can say so, sort of. What other differences you would highlight cultural within this younger crowd coming into Ethereum? Also, you can always compare with Bitcoin, that it's much more elder dudes and the different cultural vibe between the sort of Ethereum freshmen and your generation, if you can say so.
It's totally, we had a lot of fun, but we were maybe brave or maybe called naive because we didn't have the experience of what can go wrong yet. So today, of course, things can go wrong. They're not as naive. I would still say the young people coming to Ethereum learn the fundamentals, learn how to do a smart contract, learn what it really can do, and continue to dream big. If you look at the DEF CON 1 presentations, I recommend you to do so. Big visions, like we change identity. We wanted to build a universal share network, totally getting rid of Uber and Airbnb in 2 years' time or so. Like we had those super big visions. We wanted to connect all IoT devices using Ethereum, they can pay each other. And we started building this out. And sometimes you go back to a little nice something. I don't want to put anything bad in it, but the big visions are sometimes gone. Let's go to really dream really big. This gets people excited and this gets them to fund it, to get behind it and to use it. And something which is that big, which needs a blockchain to justify its existence. Because if it's so big, it should never be controlled by one person. So then you get into this, like we thought about creating a complete new financial system. This was utopia. Like the books we read back then, we shared was like sci-fi stuff, complete utopia. And we really thought we would be there in 5 or 10 years if we succeed. So let's get back to those really big dreams and just build it out, dare to do what's necessary, and I think people will follow. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I have a last question as
Okay.
well.
For such a good ending. Okay, get that.
Sorry, yeah. Try to make it better. I mean, it's crazy how this reminds me of the yeah, this is how this reminds me of kind of the beginning of the internet as well. I think in the beginning of the internet, the vision was also very, very big, and then it ended up not really in the picture of the initial creators. And so this is, in a sense, actually very, very similar as well. So you were saying you're very positive. What makes you so positive? Because actually what I can see a bit of a change in the gaming space, I guess. I think the gaming space started very, very badly with NFT games. And now there's kind of a move back to putting everything back on chain. You know, kind of the idea of having front ends for the same game state is something exciting again all of a sudden. So that's the change I can see, kind of moving back a little bit. Is it also what you're seeing that's very positive, or is it?
So you know this Gartner hype cycle, and maybe that has been used so many times, but I always feel we are at the bottom. So meaning one of the biggest benefits of what we have been built is interoperability between applications. So that one smart contract can call another. Maybe it needs to be rediscovered. Let's say those gaming apps and those DeFi applications, but they can call each other and just do stuff. And now maybe, and this is just a silent hope, if AI really becomes big in the AI agents, that's the only way they can operate. If this is good or bad, let's see, I don't know. Maybe I'm just optimistic because I have kids. I always think my kids will figure it out. They're smarter than me. And let's see if the next generation learns from our mistakes and just goes back to what was good. And sometimes it's just, as a physicist, you would say, it's always swinging, it's always waves. So if you go too far in one direction, we hit something, breaks, something, feel this is not good enough, we go into another direction. Often we overshoot. But long term, I hope we approximately hit, in the long limit, hit the right thing. Yeah. Okay, up to Florian.
Thank you so much for this wave of sunshine, optimism and inspiration, Christoph.